Sisterhood. And today we have Anna, my co-founder, who is also with Green Talk. Hi, Anna. She's also expert gardener. We call her Gardenista. Alicia from the Soft Landing and I nicknamed her Gardenista because she is an avid gardener. She grows food, she grows all kinds of stuff. And we're really happy to have her today because I don't garden. I have black thumb. I can never grow anything. I fail miserably. So I thought this would be a great time to ask her because this is a great season to start growing something that you can eat, hopefully feed your family with. So we thought we can have Anna talk to us about gardening because I'm definitely a beginner in this field. So Anna, first of all, tell me, how did you start gardening? Like, in other words, like, why did you start? When did you start? And what do you like about gardening and all that good stuff?
You know, it's really funny that you asked me that because I can't really tell you why I started. You know, I just decided one day to grow tomatoes, and because I have a big plot of land, and I decided to grow tomatoes and bought seedlings from California. Believe it or not, bought seedlings from California. They were organic seedlings. They were heirloom seedlings, and then I bought them and put them in the ground and watched them grow. And actually, I made my biggest mistakes. I planted them in July. You do not plant tomatoes in July. So after that, it just bloomed. It became an obsession. I think when you like something, it just grows, and that's what happened to me. And it's gone from those 4 tomatoes to 32 beds of vegetables. So it's
Wow.
kind of gotten, it's gotten a little big. That's why you don't see me on the web sometimes because I'm in my garden.
Anna, the little farmer.
Yeah, my little farmer. Actually, my sister calls me, remember Green Acres?
Yes.
Because, I'm a lawyer by trade. She calls me the husband. What was his name? She was Zsa Zsa Gabor, but what was he? Ed something?
Yeah, Ed something. I forgot his character name, but I know
Right.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so my sister calls him. She tells me I'm him. I'm definitely not Zsa Zsa. I don't have the personality or the wardrobe to be Zsa Zsa.
Or the hairdo.
Or the hairdo,
Or the accent.
So she calls me him because she says, because you think you're a farmer and you're so not a farmer, but I like it. It's fun. It's a healthy obsession.
Well, definitely healthy. But I have a question though. You say you started out with 4 seedlings of tomatoes. So is that what you recommend for a beginner gardener to start with? Because it seems like you've been very successful. You started gardening all the other great things because of tomatoes. Is that what you would recommend as a beginner gardener? Is it easy to grow?
I think tomatoes are pretty simple, honestly. I mean, people out there may differ from me, but I think they're pretty simple. Give them a little love, a little fertilizer, and they grow. And I think they're easy. And I think tomatoes also are something that kids and people eat a lot. So it's an easy fruit to do.
Can I just...
Is it a fruit or a vegetable?
Both, fruit and vegetables, I think. But can I just share I want to share a picture of your tomato.
You mean one of my children?
Yeah, one of your children. Hang on if
Yeah.
I can do this. Okay, hang on.
I have to tell you, Karen, that my kids complained that. Let me put it up on
Can
the
you
screen.
see this?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to put it up on the screen because. Okay, there it is.
There you go.
That's one of the first ones I grew. That's an heirloom, and I forget which one that is, and I still grow it. I think it's not Genovese; it's something else. But I've grown.
They look like peppers.
They do.
They look like peppers, like with all the, all the folds, and you know what I mean. It looks like those red bell peppers. It doesn't look like like a round red ripe tomato that you see in pictures.
Well, a lot of the heirlooms are very different looking. They're not like your regular red tomato that you see in the grocery store. They're very funky looking.
Uh-huh.
Like, for instance, that's a lemon cucumber. That's a cucumber.
Wow.
And can you see the dots on its face? Because it looks like it has a 5 o'clock shadow. Seriously.
They do.
When it grows.
I mean, it does.
And it's its size, and you have to. Yeah, it's got fuzz, and it's so delicious. Now, if you wait for that to get too big, it gets really seedy. But it's like, that's what heirlooms are. They're really funky looking plants. They're different than what we see. My strawberries. I love my strawberries. Those are another really easy plant to grow, but they can get very invasive. So
They're like weeds. They
yes,
cover like almost like ground covers, right?
yes, but the problem is they only have a life of about 3 years, and then you may still have the foliage, but you won't really produce strawberries after that. So a lot of
Oh, okay.
growers will actually take them out every year and put new ones in.
I
Um,
love I love seeing these. I wish you had more pictures. These are great pictures
I
of like real, real vegetable. I mean, labor of love. I mean, now I know what you do when you don't answer your emails or your phones.
no,
You're out there.
I'm screaming at the moths to get away from my plants. That's what I'm doing. I have like no voice left after that.
Okay, so I have a question. Okay, like kind of walk me through this. If I'm interested in growing any of those things, let's say tomato, let's take tomatoes since you started with tomatoes. So I buy the seedlings, and you said don't plant them in July, but when is a good time to plant? And do I just put them in the pot or out in my garden, and voila, I get those wonderful looking heirloom tomatoes? Is that how it works?
I wonder, I wish it was that simple.
No?
It's not that simple. You really have to be very careful because everybody's zone is different and tomatoes like warmth. So you want to plant your tomatoes after frost date. Now, a lot of people will go ahead and plant them before frost date and they'll use something called walls of water, where it's like this plastic like wall, just like it sounds like a wall that they put around it to keep it warm because everybody wants that tomato by like July 1st, and I don't do that. I actually wait till the soil is warm enough to plant. And usually that
Wait,
tends to
but
be.
but this winter was kind of cold, right? And it's still kind of cold right now. So how do you know when is your frost date? You called it a frost date, like in your zone.
There's actual Farmer's Almanac. There's you can actually just Google frost date, and
Oh,
it will
okay.
tell you for your area. My area is like May 18th, between May 15th and May 18th. Everybody always calls it Mother's Day, but actually Mother's Day was not warm enough, and I
No,
made
it wasn't.
and I made a big mistake. I did plant on Mother's Day, and I probably lost my basil.
Wait, is that
Um,
why Mother's Day is such a huge plant sale day?
yes,
Oh, so it's
yes.
not a coincidence.
No, but
I
it's
mean,
really.
I mean, it's not designed to just give plants to your mothers. I mean, there really is a reason why Mother's Day is a huge
Well,
plant.
that's in our zone. In other zones,
Okay.
we're zone six. That's the New Jersey, New York area. I mean, we're zone six, zone 5B, something like that. Other zones, it's much later above us and below us. They actually can start a lot sooner. And like North Carolina, they can start a lot sooner than us. Their frost date's earlier. So that Mother's Day is just I don't know if that has any coincidence, but that's what people always say up here. Oh, Mother's Day, you can plant. Well, I kind of followed that rule and put my basil in, and now it's not, it's practically dying because it got hit with a real, remember Mother's Day how cold it was?
Yeah, it was
And,
very cold.
and I covered them up with row covers and everything, and it's still, they're so sensitive. You got to be careful because what's the point of buying something if gets destroyed by frost? So,
So you watch your zone, you watch your frost date, and let's say it's safe to plant. So I just dig the hole, put
well,
it in.
tomatoes are different because tomatoes, they have to be planted all the way up to their neck. Like,
What does that mean?
they have like 4 or 5 sets of flowers sometimes, not flowers, leaves, and you want to go to the last set of leaves, the ones that are emerging the last, and you take off the other leaves because a tomato gets very, very big, and when you buy it in the store, it's very skinny, and it
Right.
would never support those tomatoes. So
Oh,
what you have
okay.
to do is you have to put it all the way in the ground, all the way up to its necks. Its neck. So all that's showing is like these, like think of ears, these two leaves, these two big leaves. So that gives it the ability to root underneath and create this big heavy stalk.
I always thought that over mulching, like you wrote that post about mulching too much, right? Like you don't want to bury your plants and your stems, but tomato is different, I guess.
Tomato's one of the few.
Okay. So
One of the
you
few.
so you dig your hole deep enough so that you can bury all the way up to the first set of leaves.
Well, the last set of leaves.
Well, depend. I guess the lowest leaves, right?
No,
No?
the highest leaves, the ones at the very
The
top.
highest, really?
Yes. Yes. And you take off the other leaves and I throw them in the hole with them. Or you can use them to make compost tea with them if you want to.
Oh, so you planted all the way to the top of the seedling where, okay,
Right. And
gotcha.
I've made the mistake of growing my tomatoes by seed and starting in February, and they must have been at least 2 or 3 feet tall. I was digging to
Oh,
China to get these things. I mean, they were like this big.
okay.
Seriously. And I'm like going, God damn it, I'm digging these I know, language, you know, I'm
I can't
digging
bleep you.
away. You
Oh,
can believe me.
okay.
And I couldn't believe I did that. And I learned my lesson from that too. You know, you want to, if you're going to grow them by seed, you kind of go backwards from your frost date or when you normally put them in. And it's like 6 weeks before frost date. Usually you start growing seedlings for tomatoes. And there's a reason why, because they'll get too big.
Too tall for you to
Right.
plant in the ground. Oh, that's good to know. Because you can't plant them until after frost, and if you start the seedlings too early, it'll get too tall, and you're still okay. You still have them in your house before you
Right.
can take them out. I
Right.
get it.
I've gotten
Okay.
them way too big. And I just like looked at them and said, uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
You know, I also heard that you can put like milk and fish bones in the ground to use as fertilizer. Have you ever heard that, or is that a
Milk.
old?
You actually use old milk. Yes, milk I've heard is really good for
Yeah,
tomatoes. I've actually used milk and water to spray my cucumber plants with because it's supposed to be a deterrent to mildew. Not mildew, that's not the right word.
fungus.
That white mildewish look. It's got a name. I'm like blanking on its name, but
Fungus is that
it's
fungus?
not I don't know
No,
if it's a fungus, but it usually will go after like melons, tomatoes, not melons, that family's cucumbers and squash, like it'll get a white coloring on it. And if
okay.
you dilute it with water, that it's supposed to stop it. But tomatoes like milk. I actually was gonna remember a while ago I asked you what to do with my old milk.
Right, right.
And you know, you can't really make biscuits out of it like people think you can make biscuits out. It's not the same thing as
No.
raw milk. So
Okay.
I was going to take your advice and put it in the freezer and turn around and put it in all around my tomatoes because it's calcium. They like calcium.
Right. Okay, so we have let's was that May or after frost, it's safe to plant.
Ki-
Um
One thing I want to tell you, most people, the old
mhm.
timers, don't plant their tomatoes to 2 weeks after frost date because then the soil's warm. And people go, oh my God, I'll never get a tomato. Your plants will catch up very quickly if there's warmth.
Okay. So
They
how do you know, besides, the frost date that you Google to find out, how do you know if your soil is warm enough to plant?
they have thermometers that are
You
really,
have soil thermometers?
yeah, you can do that. A lot of people don't bother. They just kind of, think if it's warm enough. But I do actually have a soil thermometer, and I was using it this time. But see,
Of
the
course you
problem
do.
is,
You're the
yeah,
only one who soil thermometer.
right. But the problem is that if you go by soil thermometers, like there's a whole temperature ranges of what's good for plants, you may never get a melon in our zone. So
Right.
that's part of the problem. You have to kind of it's common sense a little bit, but I do find like on the packages a lot of times they'll say 2 weeks after frost date, and they say that for a reason because these are people who grow these plants. So I think if you follow your seed packages or what's on the website for your seed packages, or even Google it, like even go onto a seed package place, even if you bought seedlings, and see when they say it's best time to plant.
Okay, so you have the right time to plant. You have your seedlings. I know I have to dig deep enough to cover all the way to the top of the tomato plant.
Yes.
Um, what else do I need to look for, or what else do I need to watch out for? Is
Well,
that it?
before you start, you should make sure that you have the proper sunlight. You need at least 6 hours of sunlight for these plants to grow, and a lot of people don't, and they wonder why their plants are stunted. So the best thing to do is probably, the year before, or just kind of look at where your south portion of your lawn is, and is there trees around it to shade it? Because otherwise, you're just not going to grow things, and you're going to fail. So sunlight's one of the most important things that you need to do. Second would be checking what's in your soil, because a lot of times people have soil that's devoid of any nutrients. So you want to find out what kind of proper fertilizer that you need because you may be missing potassium, or maybe you're missing nitrogen, or maybe whatever you need. And you can do that simply by going to like your county extension and getting a package, and then you come home and you put a little bit like in the package, and they send it off to a lab, and then they tell you what you need and what you don't need, and it gives a whole profile of all different plants.
Does that cost a lot of money to do
No,
that, to test
not that
yourself?
expensive. I mean,
No? Okay.
they have, and it's worth it. It's really worth it because think about what it's going to cost to buy those seedlings. Those seedlings are at least $4 a piece.
Well, not only that, I mean, labor, time, and
Right,
effort you put into it. I mean, you grow your tomatoes or whatever you're planting the whole season, and then you're going to eat, fruit and produce devoid of any nutrients. I mean,
right.
that's one of the
Well,
biggest issues
it won't
of
grow.
foods.
It
Yeah.
won't grow. And another thing too is that you want to make sure that your soil is not very compacted because like I have a lot of clay, and clay is terrible. It does not drain. Think of silly putty.
Right.
Water's not going to go through that. And so that means one, your plant's not going to thrive because it's not going to get any water. And two, it's going to feel suffocated when it does get water because it's going to hold on to it. So I actually garden in raised beds. I made them. They're very, very, very easy to make. You know, it's like four two by eights I made, you know, and you could just put them together. And I like the raised beds because it allows for great drainage and the plant and the soil gets warmer quicker. And
So
it's
when you make your raised beds, you basically make these boxes out of wooden planks, and then you put the soil that you want inside those beds. So how deep are they though?
Mine are 6 inches deep. Some
And
people
that's
like
all
to
you need?
Yeah, some people like to make them bigger because they don't like to bend over.
Okay.
It hurts after a while. You're
Well, I
constantly
guess
bending
you
over.
can make them looking like tables, basically, right?
Yes, some
Okay.
people do. Some people
Okay.
do. It's just expensive.
But
And
you
I,
only need 6 inches of soil for a lot of these vegetables and fruits to grow.
yes, yeah.
Really?
Well, wait, carrots, anything that grows underground, like a carrot, a parsnip that has a long
Root
stem,
vegetables?
they need more room. They need like 10, 12 inches.
Okay.
So those, I mean, if you're going to grow those, I mean, onions, turnips, rutabaga, they don't need that much depth. It's when you go to carrots and anything that's long,
Mm-hmm.
that's when they need depth. And then you also want to make sure underneath the soil. Some people actually can do that in the 6 inch ones. They just make sure the soil underneath the 6 inches is nice and crumbly, so it makes it easy for them to go through. They actually till the soil underneath. I didn't. It's too hard for me. My soil is really tough, tough
So
stuff.
so you buy soil from your local nursery and they deliver the soil for you, or how do you, yeah?
What I do half compost, half soil, and mostly now
Right.
it's becoming more compost than soil. So you can buy bags of both.
Okay.
And then some people actually underneath their beds will put like cardboard, so to keep the weeds from coming through.
Hmm. I
Mine have been,
also heard you can use I also saw newspapers
you
that you can
can,
line underneath,
you
but I
can.
worry about the ink, the toxic ink on the papers. Is that an issue?
Um, I don't use newspaper because I don't think it's going to hold anything except for maybe like, weeds in a regular, surface. I use cardboard because it's just tougher.
Okay.
You've got some really tough weeds that can come through, like perennial weeds, like they'll just come through. So I don't use newspaper personally in my own bed. Some people do. I
Okay.
don't use the color pages ever. I use
Right.
them more in like pathways and then cover it up with mulch.
Hmm.
I have the same fear you do. I don't know how untoxic or toxic they are, so I just don't do it. A lot of people do.
Okay. All right. So you test your soil, you tested your sunlight, you have enough nutrients. I also heard about pH.
Yes, some plants fare better in different pHs. So that's when you do those soil tests, they'll tell you. Like for instance, blueberries do not do well in regular soil. They do well in acidic soil. So that's why my blueberries have suffered for a couple years because I just kind of planted them and said, oh, okay, just grow blueberries. That doesn't work that way. So I have to actually amend the soil. I have to give it something to make it more acidic, and I'm constantly testing it. And it's hard because our soil's more in our area is more 6 to 7, and to get it down to 5 is not easy.
Well, I know
So
that even flowers like azaleas,
yes,
rhododendrons, they
yes,
need, different pH.
yes.
And do you just correct the pH around the plants, or like for instance, you have raised beds. So do you have one raised bed that is, more acidic than others, or I mean, how do you
Well, the
change?
only you can do that. I don't have raised beds for my plants like azaleas and things like that. The
No,
right
but I'm
way,
talking about your blueberries and your strawberries and whatnot.
they're not in raised beds. The strawberries actually
Okay.
can be can be a pH of 6. They're okay. I made the mistake when I did my blueberries is I should have amended the hole before I did the soil, or I should have done it the year before to start getting the soil ready. I made that mistake. So that's what people do with azaleas. They're supposed to do is make the hole around there more acidic, like plant the right stuff to get it to where it's supposed to be so that they thrive, and then keep fertilizing them with the right fertilizer that's meant for them.
Okay. So, all right. So now we got proper sunlight, proper temperature. I'm writing these things down. Right pH. We got the drainage taken care of, and we got the nutrients. We tested the soil and all. We know all that stuff. So for let's say tomatoes, since you are talking about how easy it is to plant tomatoes, how like how many inches apart do I plant tomatoes? Because I've seen them so big. growing really tall and wide. And I've seen those wire supports,
Yes, you
on
have to
tomatoes
put supports on tomatoes. Absolutely, because they'll
because
just
they'll fall off.
they'll fall over. They're heavy.
Right, right.
They're heavy.
And
I I have heirlooms. Heirlooms tend to get very large. Just I don't know why that is. They just do. I don't know if regular ones do the hybrids. I don't know, but I usually grow heirlooms, and they can get very tall, 6 to 7, 8 feet tall.
six
So
to seven, eight. Holy cow! Really? They get that tall?
they get about 6 feet tall. Yeah,
Still, wow.
yeah,
I
and they
didn't
get
realize.
very bushy, very,
Right.
very bushy, and
Well, I
very
mean, and
big.
tomatoes are huge. When you look
Yeah,
at heirloom tomatoes compared to like regular, regular tomato. I mean, I say regular tomatoes, but they should be not irregular tomatoes. Heirloom should be the regular kinds, right?
right. But they I tend to do. It depends on the spacing that they tell you on the package. It's usually 2 to 3 feet.
2 to 3 feet apart. Okay.
So I have maybe 3 or 4 of them in a bed.
Okay.
And, some people prune theirs. I'm really, really bad about it. I'm really bad about taking, branches off because I'm afraid, oh, the tomato, but some people do. They prune them and they keep them very compact and they do a really good job of it. I just don't. I'm really bad about it. And
Now, these tips you're telling me about tomatoes, this applies to all plants, I'm assuming, right? I mean, talking about the soil testing, pH,
yes.
and the nutrients and all that. I mean, that applies across the board. It doesn't matter what you plant, not just tomatoes.
Right, but it depends on the plant whether it's a heavy feeder or not. Tomatoes are heavy feeders. Corn is a heavy feeder. Some are not. Beans are not heavy feeders because
Okay.
they fix nitrogen in the soil. So it depends on the plant, whether how often you feed it,
Okay.
and what it takes out of the soil. So I almost wonder if it's not is it bushy plants what I would say were heavy feeders or I don't know. Just certain plants are just really heavy feeders. And what I also do is another trick that you could do, especially with tomatoes. The hornworm comes after tomatoes. It's this gross green worm,
I
and
was going to ask you about bugs. Okay.
it's big. It can be like this big. It's
Okay.
big, and it can be camouflaged because it's green. But what
Okay.
it'll do is
They're not caterpillars? I love
they
caterpillars.
they probably are eventually, but they'll eat your tomato plant to death.
Oh,
So
okay.
you have to look for them. You have to watch for them. If you start seeing holes in your plants,
Mm-hmm.
they're there. Or you see something called like this green poo. Seriously, green,
Green poo.
these like little green poo things all over the place. You
So can
got them.
we pick them up and like put them on other like weeds or something away from your garden? Do
Don't
we have to
know.
kill them?
I've killed them,
Oh,
or
you
I
killed them.
or I've actually taken them and
Because personally, I don't think I
I put
would.
them in my neighbor's yard.
Yeah, there you go. Your favorite ones, right? No, I don't think I can tell the difference between a caterpillar and your green poo. Like if I saw a bug, like I would be like, it's a bug, and you squish him. But what if
He
you
has a
squish a
horn.
caterpillar?
He has a horn on
Oh,
him. He has a horn like on the like here.
oh, just one horn in the middle.
That's
Oh,
why it's
okay.
called a horn. A horn.
Oh, okay.
You know, um, like for instance, you'll see these beautiful, they're swallowtail, I think, caterpillars. They'll
Okay.
eat your dill and your fennel, and they'll eat another plant that's like that. They're breathtaking. Most breathtaking. I took a picture of them from on my website. They're the most breathtaking caterpillars, uh,
Hmm.
and um, and people said leave them alone, and I didn't know. I left them alone
Okay.
because I figured the dill would come back, but the tomatoes I don't know if they'll come back. But I don't leave those alone. And another thing that you may get with tomatoes is aphids, with those little white flies
That's
underneath.
what ladybugs are for, right?
Well, if you can get ladybugs to stay in your garden,
Oh,
that's another thing too. People go and buy those ladybug trap things, and they throw
yeah.
them into your gardens. Your ladybugs say, "Hey, thanks," and they go someplace else.
I
That's
have
why
I have
that's
ladybugs in my garden, but I don't think I'll have enough to kill all those aphids from my
some
roses.
people actually take tinfoil and they put it underneath the plant of a
Yeah, I heard
tomato
about that.
because it freaks the aphids out because they don't like
Right.
sunlight. So they think that they're upside down, so they leave.
Interesting. Did you
So,
try that?
no, I actually have this spray blaster. I get more joy out of blasting the hell out of them. Oops, just again. So I have a spray blaster and it sprays them and it's
Okay.
so I can, and they just like say enough and eventually they.
Can you spray like you've seen those DIYs with I think it was a dishwashing detergent, like diluting that with water, or some of it's like with vinegar and water. Like I've seen a whole bunch of
People,
natural.
yeah, they do that.
But then
I just find the water easier because I think the soap
okay,
dries out the leaves.
I was gonna say if you get the wrong mixture, wrong ratio, you can kill the plants. I know my
Right.
mother did that one time.
Yeah, it dries them out. But this
Okay,
blaster has
yeah.
like these four prong water things, and it's so much fun to spray the plant with it. It's like,
Hire,
yeah,
yeah, hire your neighborhood kids who want to play, water, like a water balloon or water gun
it's
fights,
like
and then
how to
have
get your anxiety out. Take
there
one of
you
those
go.
things. I'm like Arnold Schwarzenegger out there. Like, I'll be back.
Yeah, I guess it's physically removing them with water. That works,
Yeah,
right?
so they're like, oh my God, this woman's crazy.
Okay, quickly, we have a couple of more minutes. I have a question for you. I have to show you, so just hang on tight, okay? Okay. You see this? Here's my garlic.
I'm going to put you up on the screen because actually I'm controlling the screen, I think.
Oh, you were? I see
Yeah.
myself on the screen, but anyway,
Uh-oh, that means I haven't been on the screen.
I see garlic. I don't know if you can see it. This is my ginger.
You have
There's a little
eyes.
there's a little thingy right here. I don't know if you can see it.
Yep.
This right? Little sprouting thing. And my
Potato.
potatoes and the buds.
Yep.
Okay. All these were well, they were edible. Now they're not edible, but they're all growing little sprouts. My question is, can I cut them up
Yes.
and plant them
Yes.
in my, yeah?
Yes.
Cool.
Show me your potato first and I'll tell you what to do.
Okay.
Okay, usually with a potato, and actually that's coming up on my website, by the way.
Oh, I
I
bet
I
you
did
mine.
I did something I've never done before, and I actually bought really big potatoes like that and let them sprout. You need one or two eyes for that. That's how the potato grows. It's coming out of that eye. So people cut around so it's only like 1 or 2 inches, and then they have an
Okay.
eye in them.
So do I cut like this?
No, you only want one eye. So sometimes,
Oh,
so
just
like,
one.
yes, one eye in there, 1 or 2 eyes at most. And
Okay.
then you plant them eye up in the
Right.
potatoes are different than everything else. Potatoes actually grow. You first cover them up with like 2 or 3 inches of dirt, and then as they grow, you keep mounding on top of them. They're the ones that you hill. So they're
Oh,
so you hill them.
okay.
Um, they're one of the few that do that. The same thing with your
Oh
hi
boy.
Rosie. Hi
Sorry,
Rosie.
my dog is barking.
That's Rosie. Um, she's got something to say about the ginger.
I know. Sorry about that.
So the same thing with ginger and the the garlic, the same thing. It's growing. It's Mother Nature's way of growing. So you can
Okay.
take one of those cloves off,
And
and
then
you
just
plant.
put the little leafy things pointing upward, and
Yes,
then it'll just grow.
yes, but you have to look on the web as to how deep that you have to do that. I think garlic is 3 inches. It might be deep
Okay,
depth
3 inches.
wise, but you have to
Okay.
check. I don't know. I don't
Okay.
remember by heart. It's on my website.
Okay.
The
And
same
your
thing with
website is called Green Talk.
yes.
Great.
Yes, green talk. And the same thing you can do with the ginger as well. You can plant those in potted plants.
Hot at once. And then water. Hang on 1 second.
I'm on my own here. What I was saying about ginger is actually in my zone, I can't grow it in the ground because it'll take too long. So I could put it in a pot, and where that eye is, cut it off, and then go ahead and put it in a pot and let it grow. And then when the leaves die back, it's ready to harvest. So, don't let your plant, don't throw it in the compost if you want to grow it inside as a plant. So I don't know if you could do that one potato in a pot. I think maybe a potato every pot.
I have a question. Um, when I plant the garlic, do I take them apart or do I put the
Yes.
whole thing in?
No, each clove is its own garlic.
Okay.
Yeah, you take them apart and you stick them in the ground. This isn't the best time to grow them. Usually you plant garlic in the spring or in the
Oh,
fall.
okay. Well,
It's
I'll
either
try
way,
it.
but you could try it, but what do you got to lose? What you may end up having is a smaller bulb, and then
Oh,
you could replant that bulb again
now
in
you
the fall.
sell garlic bublets or
Yes.
what?
What bobblets are is when a garlic plant grows, it has at the top when it flowers, it actually has its seeds. So that's
Oh,
what a bobblette is. It's seeds. So they're little round. balls. They're small.
Okay. Okay.
So they're actually so much cheaper than buying garlic cloves. Like if you go to like someone who sells certified garlic cloves to grow, that could be really expensive. I think it cost me $50 to do a bed of 4 by 8. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. That's
But
that's a large area.
right, but see, the thing is that the reason why a lot of people go buy them versus going to the grocery store is one, they could be sprayed, so they won't grow, or two, they pick the best of the best. So you're
Right.
going to get like the best ones to, grow. So, if you don't care and you have a bed and, if half grow and half don't, you don't care, that's fine. But that's what a lot of people do is they buy them that way. Now, the bobblettes take 2 years.
What? Two
They take
years?
2 years to form a bulb. Yeah. Yeah, but you know
Wow.
what? I think I'm selling them for $4 with shipping. That's a big difference between $50 and $4. And if you can be patient, because that's what I did my first year, I grew them from Bobblette, and they came out fine. And actually, some people take the tops the first year and use the greens, like cut off part of the greens.
Uh-huh.
So they do
So then
that. So
so then when let's say we buy from you and we plant them and they grow and then I see the seeds on the top. Do I cut them up and save them for next year to replant them?
yeah, a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people will actually, when the garlic, it's called a scape, which it comes up
Right.
like the scape. A lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
people
yeah. I
actually
eat those.
people ate those, so they never get bubblets. And there's
Oh,
and there's
yeah,
a
I ate them.
controversy whether or not
You should eat
keeping
them.
eat no, there's a controversy whether or not you should cut. If you don't cut the scapes, does it make the bulb smaller? People go half a dozen this way, so
Okay.
that's why a lot of people never get bobblets because they cut them because they say, "Oh my God, I want my bulbs to be small." So the bobblets that I'm selling are the ones coming from the giant garlic. Because
Hmm.
my garlic, I don't know, on my Facebook page, I had one of one size and one of the other, and I said, "Holy cow, look at the other one!" It was like
Oh, I remember that
it's like this
page.
big.
Yeah, I remember that picture on your Facebook
But
page.
I have to tell you, if any of you are hesitant in gardening, you don't know what a joy it is to be able to pick that raspberry or that strawberry or that, green bean off
Or
a
garlic
vine
or
or
tomato.
garlic. Yeah, and
Right.
it's just like I sit there and eat in my garden all day long. It's because it's amazing tasting. It's just
Right.
nothing like, getting it. And people like I make jam, and people say, "Why is it so fresh?" I say, "Because it comes right off my garden and goes into the freezer. It
There's
doesn't take 3 days to get to you."
right. There's nothing. There's nothing compares to actually seeing your effort, looking at the food that you actually grew and feeding it to your family, and you know what went into it. You know what kinds of fertilizers went into it, and what kind of pesticides you used, if you used at all, natural or otherwise. I guess you wouldn't use any kind of pesticides, but any kind of your method of using bug repellents. At least you know what goes into it, and you know it's safe. And even just realizing your fruits of labor. Yeah, I think it really makes a difference in how you appreciate what nature does for you.
Plus, it's for little kids, it's really cool, and I find that they're really open to grow, gardening. They'll come into my garden, and I'll show them a kale plant, and they'll say, "Can I taste?" And my teenagers will be like, "No way, ew." And they'll try it. And I think that's what's so cool is that they are willing to investigate, and they love watching the bees. My teenagers are afraid of my bees, but that's what pollinates your garden. And it's really a very amazing aspect. It kind of humbles you, to be honest, when you're
It's
down there watching what goes on.
it's like it's a school
Yeah,
because
it
you
is.
you, you learn a lot about life in all from all different angles.
Now,
And I think
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. No, I'm agreeing with you. So go. What's your next point?
The only thing is I want to tell people, and I see this a lot, and I personally don't recommend this. Start small. Do
Good
a
point.
couple plants. I mean, I saw someone say, "I'm going to do squash, tomatoes, pumpkins, watermelon." I go, "Are you crazy?" Because that's a lot of work, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So if you want, I would always like add, a few things every year. I went from tomatoes to a garden of like 8 beds, and then I
Hmm.
went to 32. That was maybe, and sometimes I think I bit off way more than I can chew because it's just me out there. So I really would say try and only add a couple things each time so that you get the hang of what they are and get it done right, because otherwise you're just going to stop because it's too much work. And then all those people who said they were going to weed with you, they don't.
So weeding is a huge problem. That's probably part of your, major part of your day, right?
Yes,
Weeding.
yes, yes. And
Well,
checking for bugs and feeding and it's time consuming, but it's a good time consuming. But if you get it too big too quickly, you're either you have to be completely obsessed and have a lot of time, or you're just going to stop because the people who said they were going to help you aren't going to. Like you can't always count on your kids to help.
well, Anna, I can't appreciate enough. I can't thank you enough. This talk has been really, enlightening to me because I always think that I'm going to grow something this year and I never get to because, like you said, you miss that season when you're supposed to, like the garlic you were telling me it's too late. Or I plant too early and it's too early and, everything gets killed. But just to recap what you just said, I want to make sure that I plant at the right time, watch my frost date, and check the soil for nutrients and pH levels and make sure that it's draining properly and make sure that the garden is in the right spot and getting the right sunlight, amount of sunlight during the day. And bugs, control bugs as naturally as you can, I suppose. And start small. Great advice and very wise tips from our gardenista, Anna Hackman from Green Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. And you have to come back because there's so much more to talk about. And thanks for the tips on how to plant my tomatoes and garlic and ginger that I was going to throw out, but I wasn't sure if they can be saved. So thank you so much for the tip for those as well. Can you tell me what you're planting now, real
Sure.
quick?
Um, I am planting right now. I just put in all my beans. I did black beans, cannellini beans, which is new for me this year. I still haven't gotten my edamame in yet, and because it's been raining here, it's been really bad. You really don't want to plant in the rain. It's not healthy. I got, let's see what else got in. My watermelon, my squash. I do pumpkins. I did regular melon. I also planted more celery because I grow everything by seed, and I think
That's it?
no, there's more.
Real? Oh
Actually,
my God, that's
what actually,
it?
yeah,
I was being facetious. Oh my gosh.
no,
I
and
mean,
there's
that's
actually this is my first year doing quinoa. I'm going to be doing quinoa.
holy
So
cow.
so
That
it's
is awesome.
yeah,
Well, I
it's
can't.
fun,
Well, you know what? You have to come back and tell us how all those little, kitties are doing, because I know you refer them to as your kids. So
My children think I like them better.
you probably
And
do.
I do.
So you're gonna have to come back in July or August and show us this time your harvest and show us what they look like.
Well, thank you so much, Karen, for having me on. Gardening, I could talk about it forever.
Oh,
So,
I know. It's already been like almost 40 minutes. So let's come back and talk some more later. Okay? Thanks a lot.
thanks for having
Bye.
me.